All right, so you wanted to really get into like the power of positive thinking, and that's what we're going to do. We're not just like skimming the surface. We're going to go deep.
Yeah.
Why it matters, how it works, and how you can use it like to actually navigate those challenges that we all face.
Absolutely. And to really get into that, we're going to look at this episode of the English Speaking Podcast. That was all about positive thinking. Yeah, they covered a lot in that episode. But we're going to pull out some of the most surprising and I think useful parts of it.
Okay. It's like we're giving your brain a little workout, but maybe it'll help you deal with like that annoying coworker a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
No promises on the commute, though. We got to be realistic.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So to start off the podcast, really emphasized what positive thinking actually is, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Right. Like it's all about ignoring problems or just like wishing really, really hard that things are going to work out.
Exactly. Yeah. The podcast busts that myth right away. Positive thinking is about focusing on solutions, learning from everything. Even those tough experiences and kind of seeing the good in situations without, sugarcoating the bad.
It's interesting because they talk about agency being like a core part of this, which kind of made me think about something that you mentioned in your prep notes.
Yep.
Even when life throws those curveballs at you and you're dealing with something that's completely out of your control, positive thinking helps you choose the best response emotionally.
Oh, that's such an important point.
Yeah.
Because it's not about pretending like you have control over everything you know. It's about recognizing that you do have control over how you react to things.
Okay.
And that's powerful.
Yeah, and isn't that where the whole mind-body connection comes in?
Oh, for sure.
The podcast really dives into all the like physical benefits of positive thinking. And I have to admit, like, this is the part that always gets me. Lower stress, better mood, a stronger immune system. They even say that it can improve heart health.
It's amazing how intertwined our mental and physical states really are. And we're not talking about magic here.
Right.
There's real science to back this up.
Okay, so walk me through this.
Yes.
They mentioned dopamine and serotonin, those feel-good chemicals. But how does positive thinking actually, like, create those physical changes?
Well, think about dopamine. It's not just about pleasure. It's about motivation. When you think positively, you're essentially giving your brain a hit of dopamine, which then in turn makes you want to take positive actions.
Okay, so it's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
The more you think positively, the more you want to act in ways that support that positive mindset, which then feeds back in.
Exactly. It reinforces itself.
Okay.
And then there's serotonin, which is like your brain's natural mood stabilizer. Positive thinking boosts serotonin production, which helps you stay balanced even when things get tough. It's not about eliminating stress. It's about equipping yourself to deal with it better.
Okay, that's a really good point. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. They hear positive thinking and they're like, oh, so I'm never supposed to feel stressed. I'm never supposed to feel upset.
Right. And that's one of the big myths that the podcast tackles head on.
Yep.
This is like a really important scientific understanding because I think it helps debunk some common misconceptions that you might have encountered.
Right.
About positive thinking.
Like the idea that it's just wishful thinking or that you're just supposed to ignore problems altogether.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about denying reality. It's about acknowledging the challenges while also focusing on the potential, the opportunities for growth. It's about having like a realistic yet optimistic outlook.
It's funny because I used to think that positive thinking was something that you were either born with or not.
Yeah.
But the more I learn about it, the more I realize that it's a skill. It's something that you can cultivate and develop.
Absolutely. Just like learning a new language or a musical instrument.
Yeah.
It takes effort and consistency.
Exactly.
Practice.
Okay, so we've talked about we've talked about the science behind it. We've talked about like busting some of those myths. What are some things that people can actually do to like
to put it into practice?
To put it into practice.
Yeah, like how do we actually do this?
How do we do this?
Because it's one thing to talk about it, but how do we actually implement it into our lives?
Exactly. So what does the podcast say about that?
Well, they actually give some really great tips, and I think we should dive into those.
Okay, let's do it.
So speaking of developing that skill, the podcast does a great job of kind of outlining some practical tips that you can actually implement in your daily life.
Yeah, this is my favorite part. They really like get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
They gave 4 main tips: gratitude journaling, reframing negative thoughts, surrounding yourself with positive influences, and practicing self-compassion.
All evidence-based practices, which I think is so important.
Yes.
These aren't just random feel-good ideas.
Right.
They're actually strategies that have been shown to have a real impact.
I'm a huge fan of the gratitude journal idea.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds so simple. Just write down a few things you're grateful for every day. But the research on its impact is fascinating.
It's such a powerful way to shift your focus.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired to kind of pay attention to threats and negativity, which,
Right.
Way back when was helpful for survival,
Right.
but not always so helpful in modern life.
Right.
Gratitude journaling really helps to kind of rewire your brain to notice the good things, the things you might otherwise take for granted.
You know what else struck me? They talked about how positivity can be contagious.
Yes.
Literally contagious. It's not just a nice idea. There's actual research on emotional contagion.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
There's this fascinating study about emotional contagion in workplaces.
Okay.
And they found that if you have one person on a team who's consistently positive, it can actually boost the mood and productivity of the entire group.
Wow.
It's like a ripple effect.
This makes me think about my friend Sarah. She's one of the most positive people I know, and whenever I'm around her, my mood just lifts.
Yeah.
It's her positivity rubs off on me.
It's amazing how much power our emotions have to impact those around us.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Of course, negativity can be contagious too.
Oh, that's a very sobering thought.
Yeah.
But it's also empowering because it means that we have a choice. Yeah. We can choose to be the person who brings positive energy into a room.
Yeah.
Or we can choose to be the one who brings everyone down.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for the energy that we bring into our interactions.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that the more you practice positivity, the more natural it becomes.
Right.
It's like building a muscle.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And the podcast even mentioned how this positivity muscle can help you deal with setbacks more effectively.
Right. It's all about resilience. Life is full of challenges, and there will be times when things don't go your way.
Right.
But positive thinking can help you kind of bounce back from those setbacks, learn from them, and keep moving forward.
This reminds me of something you were saying earlier about agency. Even when things are tough, positive thinking allows you to find that little bit of control, even if it's just in how you respond to the situation.
Exactly. It's not about pretending that everything's fine. It's about finding a way to move forward with hope, even when faced with adversity.
So to kind of pull all of this together, it sounds like positive thinking isn't about ignoring reality or denying negative emotions. It's about consciously choosing a more constructive perspective, even when things are tough.
Yes. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose how you think and how you react, and that those choices have a profound impact on your well-being and the well-being of those around you.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what positive thinking really is, the science behind it, the myths that surround it, and some practical tips for putting it into practice. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways and maybe even challenge you with a final thought-provoking question.
I love that. Let's distill the essence of what we've discussed and leave our listener with something to ponder.
So first and foremost, I think it's crucial to remember that positive thinking is an active choice. It's not some magical state of being that some people have and others don't.
Yeah.
It's a skill you can develop with practice and intention.
Absolutely. It's about taking ownership of your thoughts, recognizing that you have the power to shape your own inner dialogue. And that inner dialogue, those thoughts that you have a powerful influence on your emotions, your actions, and ultimately your reality.
And building on that, it's important to remember that positive thinking isn't a quick fix or a magic cure-all. It's not about pretending that everything is perfect or that you'll never face challenges.
Right. It's more about creating a resilient mindset, an internal environment that kind of equips you to better navigate life's ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's about building your capacity to handle stress, to bounce back from setbacks, to see opportunity even in the face of adversity.
Exactly. And I think the final takeaway, and perhaps the most profound one, is this idea that positivity can be contagious. Your positive energy can have a ripple effect influencing those around you in ways you might not even realize.
It's such an inspiring concept, isn't it? The idea that we all have the power to create a more positive and harmonious world simply by choosing to cultivate positivity within ourselves.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. The podcast focused primarily on the benefits of positive thinking for you, the individual.
But what about the impact on your community? What would happen if everyone in your circle, your family, friends, colleagues, even strangers you encounter started practicing positive thinking? How might that change your interactions, your relationships, your overall experience of the world? It's something to consider.
Yeah, it's like that shift from me to we thinking. And it really makes you wonder, like, how much could we all accomplish if we all kind of approached our challenges with that collective optimism?
Yeah, it's like a superpower that I think we all have that we forget to use. Like imagine a world where instead of focusing on like what's wrong, we all put our energy towards solutions, towards like lifting each other up.
Okay, so if you're feeling even just a little bit inspired by all this, I challenge you to pick one of those tips that the podcast offered and like really try it out this week. Even something as simple as like writing down 3 things you're grateful for every single day can make a difference.
And like pay attention to how it makes you feel, how it affects your interactions with other people. You might be surprised by how like even these small shifts in your thinking can really ripple outwards.
And who knows, maybe those ripples will turn into waves and you'll have some amazing insights to share. Maybe you'll be the subject of our next deep dive. But until then, keep exploring this whole world of positive thinking. It's a journey worth taking.